Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today will be part two of our interview with Most Worshipful Brother Mark Forster, immediate past Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Ancient Free and Accepted Masons of British Columbia and Yukon.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the pod, we have our usual group of hosts. We have Very Worshipful Brother David Colbeth, who's a member of King Solomon Lodge number 60 in Auburn, Washington. Brother Craig Graham from Kalamalka number 160 in Vernon, BC. Very Worshipful Brother Stephen Chung from Prince Charles number 153 in Kelowna, BC. And I'm Matt Appel. I'm a member of Mill Creek 243, and we meet in Montlake Terrace, Washington. And Most Worship Brother Mark has agreed to come back for a second episode, for which we are very grateful, although we doubt his sanity for agreeing to do it. And we, for those who haven't listened to the first episode, go back and do that. But we were left off, we were sort of talking about the cool, I guess the funner side of Masonry, the more fun side of Masonry, where we get to do, like you said, you had a cornerstone sort ceremony adjacent at your house and that sort of thing, the fun stuff you've gotten to do. And I know you tried to bring a little magic to each of your visits at those surprise visits and the other ones that you were talking about. Would you mind touching on your theme for the year and how you sort of applied that to what you were doing this year?
Well, yeah, sure. That my theme, actually, it's easy for me to do that. My theme was the magic is you. And it really is about the journey of self-discovery and enlightenment that each of us has. And the magic is you is really all about Freemasonry and what we get from it and what it teaches us and how others perceive us. So how we act in our Masonic relationships, in our daily lives, in demonstrating all the virtues that we believe in, or that we teach, or that we practice, getting that out there and talking about that in the lodges is really been the whole theme this year, to try to get that out there. So really, anything we could do to have a good time and get people talking about it was how we did that. I didn't talk about earlier, but one little thing that we did a lot of this year, I don't even know how it started, but I got into poetry somehow, and I started creating poems, and the poems seemed to take off. And I had poems for all kinds of things. I had poems for the virtues of Freemasonry. I had poems for education. I had poems for long service awards. I had poems for Job's daughters. I had poems for Demolay. It didn't matter what the event was or what the occasion was. I came up with a good reason to write another poem about it. So maybe one of these days I'll publish the book of magic poems. So really that was the whole theme. That was the whole idea, was getting out there and just having fun with the theme and getting people to think about it. Hopefully that makes sense.
I think didn't you get convinced a little bit to you had a different idea for your theme initially, and then you consulted with some brothers for some guidance, and they kind of helped you massage it a little bit. But wasn't it going to be the magic is you? Wasn't it, or something like that?
It's funny. I took a Tony Robbins seminar, a 5-day seminar, trying to get myself motivated to go through this program and really be out there. And I came off that program, and my theme was Unleash the Freemason Within. That was my theme, and I presented it to a brother who did a lot of marketing and a lot of other stuff. And he hummed and he hawed, and then he said, let me think about it for a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks go by. I got together with him for lunch. We talked about everything except that for 10 or 15 minutes. So finally I had to break the ice. I said, come on, Wilson, what what did you think of my theme? And he hesitated again. And I'm like, okay, Wilson, it doesn't matter if you don't like it. You got to tell me what you think so I can move forward. Well, I don't like it, he says. I'm like, oh, great. Now what are you going to do, right? I need a new theme. So quick on my feet, I said, well, Wilson, did you have another suggestion? So Wilson Beckett, he's also one of the founder of the civility logo that we have for, you've seen the civility program. He created the civility logo. He is the instigator of my theme, The Magic Is You. Took me a while to figure that out. I got home. I didn't know what I was going to do. We were coming up to our seminar for our incoming DDGMs. I still didn't know how that fit with my theme and what I wanted to do. I hadn't figured it out yet. So I called another past master. I said, I need your help at the seminar. Oh, yeah, sure, Mark. Whatever you need. What would you like me to do? I said, I'd like you to be my guest speaker at the mock dinner we have. Oh, great. What would you like me to talk about? Said, my theme. Okay, what's your theme? Said, the magic is you. Oh, okay. What's that mean? Said, I don't know. I was hoping you were going to write something about that so I'd know what to talk about for the rest of the year. So that's how that started. Short story, ending that story, he wrote up his paper. I wrote up my paper. We compared notes. And at the end of the day, what he came up with was very similar to what I came up with in how we went forward and what we talked about. So what that meant to me was that if you think about that theme a little bit, anybody can walk away with that meaning, right? It just takes some inward thinking about what it means. So that's what happened there.
As if by magic.
It had to be.
That's one of my people always, when I start the sentence, they look at me and they finish it with me because I say that all the time. If you remember last year or not, I was like a fanboy. I couldn't wait to get to talk to you because as I read your message, I thought, this is what I say. I say automatically that things happen automatically and as if by magic. I say it all the time. And so I hope I didn't gush on you too much at our annual communication when I was talking with you because I was really excited about your theme.
Well, I appreciate that. And we had a good year with it, and actually, your grandmaster used my theme a lot. I think he had it in his closing speech at his Grand Lodge sessions.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
well, you also talked in your message about some of the other programs that you were kind of continuing, and you mentioned civility that was in there as well, and the 5-pillar plan and designate program, other things. And so were there some successes there, or you were in the last segment? I apologize, I kind of cut you off. You're going to talk about some of the business side of things, but
well, let's do that. Let's talk about some of those now. Let's talk about the 5-pillar plan first. Our 5-pillar plan was supposed to track all of the initiatives that had come up at Grand Lodge that the Grand Line was responsible to implement or to put into place. And we got that underway, and that's now in use. We've been using that for the last few years, and it will continue to go. But during the year, we determined that we might have a bigger gap. We don't really have a strategic plan. This 5-pillar plan is all about what did the brethren vote on for us to do this year or next year, and what are those things we got to do. But what's our long-term vision? What's our strategic plan for Freemasonry in British Columbia and Yukon? Are we just going to hold the status quo? Are we going to try to grow? Are we going to try to do something different or special? Exactly what is our long-term plan in British Columbia and Yukon? So we spent a bit of time talking about that, and we came to an agreement that we definitely need to put together a bit more of a strategic vision. So that a special committee has been put together to start working on that. And that committee will hopefully be able to report back at our next Grand Lodge on their findings around that particular plan and what recommendations they might have to put forward at Grand Lodge. We talked about lodge buildings last year a little bit. And one of the issues we have in our jurisdiction is that there's no real Grand Lodge oversight over our lodge buildings. Every lodge is on their own. They do their own thing. Some lodges are struggling. They don't necessarily have the right kind of people in their lodges to manage the buildings, do the maintenance, or to make the right business decisions that need to be made to redevelop or to repair or maintain their facilities. So this has caused a lot of issues in our jurisdiction within lodges and amongst brethren themselves, disagreements, and we end up in situations where we end up with unmasonic conduct, where brethren have disagreements, but they don't have a way to work through it and to help solve them. So that now leads us into the civility initiative, which we're going to come back to in a minute. But under the lodge buildings, we had a goal and we had a plan to try to put something together to get started last year on it. And we didn't succeed. I regret that we didn't come up with a solution, but it's on our forefront moving forward into next year. And we definitely hope to put something together over the next year that will help us and help our lodges going forward a bit more than what we have. That one success we did have in the buildings is that that I think we found a few more lodges reaching out to our building committee for advice and support. So prior to that, we weren't getting a lot of communication from the lodges because they didn't really see that Grand Lodge, if you will, through our committees was really helping them. So we did have a little bit of success there. It's just we need a big success. We need big wins.
You might have had more success than you actually thought of, because I heard over the year several different conversations about buildings and what happens to them if a lodge closes, and what happens when they're struggling, and the lodge building committee at Grand Lodge was mentioned several times, and how they had experienced resources available to us. We just needed to ask, right? And so I think it did get more traction and more discussion than you might be aware of. And I think if we, as a jurisdiction, make it more noticeably accessible to the lodges, maybe through our new website, the members resources section, it'll get more use yet, because there are lodges who are struggling with knowing what to do and how to approach things. And so I think that the word is starting to spread more about that committee being there and the resources, because not everybody knows.
That was part of the plan, Steve. So I think that part probably went well, where we started to get some recognition for the committee out there and to try to do stuff. I agree. I think the part I was looking more for was funding for us to be able to actually financially be able to support the struggling lodges. And that's the part that we haven't solved yet, is how to help the struggling lodges financially. Right. So, hey, we talked about this. We had, several incidences of unmasonic conduct throughout the year, stemming, some of them in a large part, to disagreements between the lodges and the buildings. Now, prior to this year, civility wasn't really a agreed to issue here in our jurisdiction. It was felt that in British Columbia and Yukon, we were very civil, and we're Canadian. We're always polite and civil, right? But we found out maybe throughout the year that we're not as polite and civil as we think we should be. And I didn't know how to proceed with this to get this initiative going in our jurisdiction. But I had a very fortunate opportunity to meet a man by the name of Dr. Clinton Lee. Dr. Clinton Lee he specializes in, he teaches the art of of wine appreciation and etiquette. And in that, he involves civility. And he talks about civility initiatives on an international scale and on an ageism scale. So in Freemasonry, if we think about an international scale, we have lodges that have all kinds of different nationalities in them. But we don't all think the same. So, let's just take a lodge in Europe. They think a lot differently than we do here in North America, or a lodge in the Philippines, or a lodge in South America. The Masons in those lodges think much differently, and they act much differently than the way we think and act here. So when we bring them all together here, when they immigrate into North America, into our lodges here, they all have different ways of thinking, and it's hard to bring them all together. And then we start to see some of these clashes occurring. And this is what he specializes in. The other area he specialized in was ageism. A millennial thinks differently than a baby boomer or a Generation X or another millennia, if you will. And in order to bring those together, you have to be able to understand each other to be able to work with each other. And he specializes in that. So I had a long chat with him, and he came to our Grand Lodge this year as a guest speaker. And he had two topics. The first topic he talked about was really about civility and creating some tools that people could take away from that Grand Lodge to be able to work and to help themselves when they got themselves into a situation. And then he came back at the end of our sessions and had a little bit different talk, still around civility, but in the form of, we now have to take action. It's time for us to do something. And I think that had a huge impact on a lot of people. I had many people come to me after this Grand Lodge and after his speech to tell me what a great speaker he was, that his message was bang on, that they really appreciated that somebody was out there talking about this stuff and bringing this back there. So it shows a huge need is out there when and I'm not talking one or two people. I'm talking about a lot of people came up to me afterwards to tell me that they really appreciated that talk. Some of you were there. How did you feel about that speech?
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was excellent. It was an outstanding speech, and very, very timely in my mind, given probably something that's overdue, because I think we're not immune to in this institution, we're not immune to the sort of changes you've seen in the last the last 15 or 20 years with the way that social media has changed discourse and interaction between people. I mean, we interact with each other now so much more through an intermediary. I mean, well, kind of the way we're all interacting right now. We're doing it electronically rather than, I mean, we're doing this in person, but it's still through an electronic medium, texting, email, social media pages and things like that is really profoundly, it's rewired us, actually. And it's long overdue for somebody like him to sort of give a speech where he examines that and says, okay, we need to step back from that and get back to a much more personal way of and a much more mannered way of dealing with things.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that message that he delivered is something that will be able to be carried forward into the upcoming year. And I know that our incoming Grand Master, Most Worshipful Brother Christofferson, well, he is our Grand Master now, Most Worshipful Brother Christofferson, really, he really liked what Dr. Lee had to say. And he is the one that asked because the speech that Dr. Lee gave at the end of the session was given to the past Grand Masters at the VIP luncheon.
Right. And I had asked him if I could get a copy of his presentation, and he had said, "Sure, can you email me for it?" And then I got busy. Somebody, I had a job to do, and I kept getting distracted at the door, guarding the door with the sword I only get to hold once a year, right? So I was busy doing that. So I'm actually sent off an email to Trevor to ask for a copy, or for him to connect me to Dr. Lee, because I have had a half dozen people ask me if I can get a copy of that.
Yeah.
And I said,
Trevor,
well, I'm supposed to be, so
yeah, Trevor has those
excellent.
speeches, but I would strongly encourage you to consider a podcast with Dr. Lee alone in the future.
Mm,
I think
yeah,
I was gonna ask for that
yeah,
connection.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna try and get the contact information from Trevor, and reach out to him. So yeah, I'll definitely ask him for that for sure.
So, in another bit of magic, most worshipful, in the May meeting at one of our lodges in Kent, most worshipful Philip Durrell came and spoke about tolerance.
Yeah.
His message on tolerance was extremely timely as well. And so it's interesting that there's this woven theme of tolerance and civility and those likenesses, weaving in our society right now.
Yep. So what else do we talk about this year? Benevolence. I felt, we have a benevolence fund in our jurisdiction, but we don't utilize it very well to help our brethren or our widows or our orphans that are in need of help. It's been very difficult to get access to it. It's so this year, our committee chair worked with his committee to try to open that up, make it a little bit more accessible, make sure that the lodges know that that's there. So I think that we made some good inroads there to start that process, to get that out there for our brethren who do have need, and to make that available to help out. So
I hope that they made it very much more streamlined, because I did reach out to it once, and it was very, very, very challenging
yes,
process to access, and I couldn't do it all because the member wasn't from my mother lodge, and so I couldn't do what Grand Lodge wanted to do,
right.
or wanted done, right? So I sure hope that's better.
Well, it's a starting point, Steve, and
Mhm.
I think there will be some things that are still going to be a challenge for the committee because the Constitution lays out how it has to work, but they've tried to make it a little bit easier, right?
Good.
And we do have another fund called Emergency Relief that it has a different way of getting the same kind of help to people on a one-off basis. So we started 2 years ago. I decided I was going to create a youth committee in my year, and I spoke to my predecessor, most worship brother Arthur Smith, let him know that I was going to do that. Suggested that if he would like to start it in his term, to go ahead and do that. So he got that going. So by the time I came around, we had a committee fully functioning with membership on both D. Malay and Job's Daughters and various advisors. We wanted to get out there and really promote the youth throughout our jurisdiction. So we created these road shows. The road shows involved the girls from Job's Daughters, some of the D. Malay. We don't have any D. Malay right now here in British Columbia and Yukon. So we did have some D. Malay from Washington and some D. Malay from Alberta come on the road show here to do this road show. I have to tell you that these youth were inspiring. The way they conducted themselves and spoke, the fact that they did their roadshow stuff, and then they had an open forum, 4 of them sitting up in the east, 2 girls, 2 boys, taking questions from the floor, random, any question you wanted to ask them, and then they would each answer those questions. And it was just inspiring to hear these 4 individuals respond to the questions in a very professional. It's like they've been doing this all their lives. They were so good at it. What I was disappointed in is that we didn't have a very big turnout from our brethren to come and see this thing. So how do we help these youth organizations if our brethren aren't interested in getting out there and going and seeing them? I haven't broken the code to that yet. Yeah, there's, but I have to say that if any brother who witnessed these individuals speaking would have no doubt said, "Oh my God, if I can get my kid involved in that and have my kid turn out like that, wow," you know. But I don't know how we break that code for them and get this going. Job's daughters are doing fairly well in BC. They are growing. They are doing well in the Bethels that are going. D-Malay is not doing well at all. We only have a few boys that are interested in D-Malay, not enough to actually form a chapter, and we can't even get those few together at once a month to even have a casual meeting. So it's going to take some effort and some time to get that going here again. So it's an area that we have to reach out into our membership and try to get some help on it, you know. Those are kind of the key items, you know. The only one other item I talked about in the year was men's health. And yeah, men's health is interesting because men don't typically go get help and they certainly, you won't see me reaching out to one of youth and saying, "Oh, I'm not feeling very well today. I'm having issues with this or this. What do you guys think?" Men don't do that, right? We don't reach out to each other. Not only do we not reach out to each other, but let's assume that we have a lodge secretary who is always really quite happy-go-lucky, does his job, does it really well, and over a period of about 4 or 5 years, he becomes slightly angrier and more frustrated, and after 5 years, nobody really likes the guy anymore. He's no longer the guy that we all remembered from 5 years ago. What's happening to that guy? Maybe he has Parkinson's or some form of dementia that's been growing over 5 years, has been growing so slow. But instead of us reaching out to be able to talk to him and say, "Hey, have you gone to see your doctor?" And trying to encourage him to get the help he might need to slow the progression down, we just ignore it and let that behavior go on. And we treat it as if, well, he's not a nice guy anymore. I got other choice words that we might use for that, but I can't do that in a podcast. But do you know what I'm saying? We tend to think of these individuals as something that they maybe aren't, that's not them anymore. They've turned into somebody else because their mind is no longer functioning the way it used to. And so basically with men's health, the idea was trying to foster an environment. We have the lodges where we all get together and we meet. We have an opportunity to help each other. We're in a safe environment. We should feel safe for a brother to come and talk to us and ask us if everything's okay,
Yeah.
And
it's one of those things that I have reached out, and I have had several conversations with different brothers to try and identify if they were struggling. And but you're right, it doesn't. We don't look at the broad spectrum of things that are included in men's health, like mental health, for one. Forget about the illnesses. I mean, in this district, we're really good about promoting, prostate cancer awareness, because we're involved in several different things here. But the rest of it does seem to get slid off to the side and not paid attention to. And so I think it was really good your request for education to be speaking about that at one point made sure that it was brought up in every lodge at least once, if not more. And I think that was really good. I mean, I was at a lot of lodge meetings this year with Al and following him around, and I did notice that was one of the things, and it got further conversation at the festive boards, right? So I think that was a really good thing to do. It was bringing awareness to that stuff is important.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, where else can you do that, right? What other organization can you be a part of where you could be with a trusted brother who is there to help you, who's interested to look out for you? I think this is it. This is the one, right?
Right.
How do we do that, right? So,
Right. And so, are we looking at another episode, guys, so we can talk about his highlights and his favorite pieces, and or are we just going to extend this one?
I think we covered all my highlights earlier.
Well,
no, there's a few there still.
we really
If we do another episode, it's going to be just reading poetry.
well, we really appreciate your time and so thankful for getting a chance to meet you, of course, and to be part of just a sliver of your year, and to hear about how well it went. And it sounds like you had a great time as well.
And you did an amazing job running Grand Lodge this year. You like hammered through all that stuff. You just it was very well done.
Well, I appreciate that, but I was having fun doing it.
Half the battle.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
It was really fun banging the gavel and telling a past grandmaster to sit down.
Well, unfortunately, what goes around comes around. Now you're the past grandmaster, so
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, you had several gavels to choose from, anyways.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, with that, most worshipful, thank you very much for coming on and doing our exit interview segment. We really appreciate your time and your effort here, and congratulations, as was just said, on a great year. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it, because I get the feeling some grandmasters don't enjoy it, and I'm glad you did.
Thank you very much.
And with that, on behalf of David and Craig and Steve and myself, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools podcast. Goodbye.